We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Had some problems yesterday, and I did a couple of lives. I don't believe they got up as podcasts, but it's a Sunday. What the fuck? Give me one day. But we're back here on Monday, and we've got a serious show ahead of us because I've talked to millennials and Gen Zs and all kinds of different people. It's time we bring another old guy with similar experiences and similar attitudes about what's going on. We've got Tony, who's in South Carolina, which is interesting because I'm in Georgia, so we're finally in the same time zone and we're in the same region of the country, which I love. I love the southeastern part of the country. But welcome, Tony. Thanks for joining me today. It was a last minute
Yeah,
thing, and you
yeah.
saved my life.
It's always a pleasure being on here. I can't think of a better thing to do on a Sunday night. My wife is off doing some hobbies. She's got the dogs. I kind of miss you when I don't see you, but I just wait to get enough ammunition beyond the podcast.
Well, you're welcome anytime. Anytime we do a show, it seems to turn out pretty well. So I never have a worry when Tony says he wants to come up. You're more than welcome. Um, we talk about all the things that Donald Trump is doing, and what's gone on the last week or so has really kind of given me the sense the tide has turned. I mean, we know Donald Trump fucks up all the time, but he's in the process of fucking up big on many levels.
Yeah, we've been following him, and it started off bad for us. Took a while for the resistance to get together, but as strong as the resistance is, his screw ups with the tariffs has been monumental. I mean,
Oh,
his folks appear on television. They don't believe a thing that they're saying. They're obviously lying. There are not a lot of images that are coming out that are in Florida. Elon, there was some he finally cut loose with Elon. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Um, yeah, it really does seem within a short space of time he is slowly destroying himself. But what can actually be done? He's not removed from the presidency yet, and until he's removed, he's a clear and present danger.
I was going to ask you about you talking about the resistance, and we'd always talked about people need to step up and push back and that sort of thing. You had to feel pretty good about what happened on April 5th in terms of 5 million people coming out and hitting the streets. That had to give you some confidence in what this country is made of. Maybe we're finally getting people waking up and saying, we got to push back because no one's helping us.
Yeah, we can't depend on the levers of power or what used to be guardrails. They're just not there. The FCC is not there. The Justice Department's not there. The Supreme Court's not there. The Congress is at a standstill because the Republicans control that. So what's left? It's the people. It was nice to see Cory Booker do a performative dance on the floor for however many hours he did it, 25 hours. That's the kind of fight that we want to see. And I hope that the rest of our Congress people realize that if they're going to run for election in 26, they better show similar attitude and fight in them. But people are getting pissed off. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm up above close to 17,000 followers now, and I stay abreast of a lot of things. I don't do mainstream media, but I do a lot of other media. So
Right.
podcasts and TikTok and YouTube, and that's where I get my news, and Blue Sky. And it's looking like people have decided that they want to fight back for their country. They are determined to make whatever differences. And April 5th just showed that folks are willing to come out. They weren't in their comfort zone. The weather was horrible in some places, better in others, and they got there. And as far as there were very few incidences, there were a couple. I understand a conservative reporter got slapped. A guy got out of his truck someplace else, and the women chased him away.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. We need more of that. We can't do it, on a weekly basis, but we need to show. Listen, in the military, there's something called centers of gravity. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
So a center of gravity is something that you attack. All right. And so for the United States, the center of gravity in the Vietnam War was not our military machine. It was the American people and public sentiment. That's how
Right.
they won. The center of gravity in Afghanistan was the same thing. And our president at the time, Biden, the center of gravity currently for the other side, for the red side, are the wealthy. We've got to make it painful for the wealthy, and we're doing that. And the Congress. We've got to scare the living shit out of the GOP so that maybe it pushes them to do something. They're close, although quite a few of them made a lot of money with this manipulation of the stock market. But they're starting to get it. They're starting to worry for their jobs.
Yeah, they are. You mentioned Cory Booker and what he did was performative. A lot of people talk shit about Cory Booker because it was performative. But my attitude about it is it's about time. That's what this whole fucking thing is about. Donald Trump won the election based on performances. So apparently
Absolutely.
that's what appeals to the people. And when Cory Booker stepped up, and while it didn't do anything immediately, it did inspire some folks. It showed some fight. And that's the one thing that Democratic voters were fucking looking for. And finally, they got some with Cory Booker. So talk shit all you want about him, but I think it was important what he did.
Let's face it, when congressmen get up or senators get up and talk, it's all performative. It's always performative. It's supposed to be. Sometimes they're talking to an empty room, but they're on television. They don't care.
Right,
That was
right.
Newt Gingrich was famous for that.
Yeah.
About time our guys got up and did the same thing. Now they need to follow up. They need to go into red districts. They need to meet with constituents, both red and blue, and be there when the red representatives aren't showing up. They need to take the slings, the darts, everything that's thrown them, and stand there and answer the questions. Because let's face it, we've got truth and we've got the right policies on our side. They don't. They don't have. They have one thing: a tax cut. That's all they have. Everything else they say is plain bullshit. So let's go to those districts and fight for every single vote that we can. We still have a massive problem of half the country doesn't vote. Well, let's get ours to vote, and let's get the other part of theirs to vote, and maybe we'll get some people off the couch to show up. So 2026 is a long ways off yet, but we have some special elections and we have other things coming up, and so long as we get momentum, we'll be all right. So long as they don't declare martial law in 26 or something like that.
Yeah, I want to talk about that later because I'm a bit dubious of this whole scare about martial law. But you talked about keeping the momentum up, and we had April 5th, 5 million people out there. There's another protest scheduled for April 19th coming up in a few days. I have a feeling that's going to be even bigger than the one on April 5th. At least we hope that's the case. But in between time, there's some protests going on too. Don't get as much coverage, but it's going on. I know that AOC and Bernie Sanders are giving some talks, and I saw a video of AOC standing in front of this huge fucking crowd. I don't know where it was, but it was news because she flat out said, "Our president is a criminal." 34 felony convictions. Now, that isn't news to any of us, but that's something that needs to be said over and over again so it controls the narrative and gets in these thick fucking skulls what they really voted for.
Yeah, I mean, one of Trump's techniques is to say the same thing over and over and over. Flat out lie, it doesn't matter. Say it again. And it looks like AOC is one of the few communicators who can do exactly that. And they need to say it. Um,
Yeah,
on Blue Sky, we add not only the word criminal, but we also add words like rapist and pedophile. So
right.
they're not shy about calling this guy as it is. But we need our representatives to speak often, to speak loudly, to repeat themselves, and to go into those places. AOC is a superstar. I am really hoping she runs for the Senate in New York and takes out Schumer. I think she'll cream him. To be honest, she's really for the working person, and she speaks a language that the working people understand, unlike some of our other representatives.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I want to talk about, obviously, we got to talk about the tariffs, this whole brilliant idea of the stable genius wanting to put on these tariffs. And Donald Trump doesn't have any gray areas. It's either the worst or the best. It's always extreme, no matter what he does. So he comes out with these tariffs on everybody in the fucking world, literally everybody in the world, because he wants to show how tough he is. And of course the stock market tanks. And that wasn't the thing that I think got people moving. It's the bond market. that started to get fucked with, and it's
And,
still being fucked with. So
and
he's very nervous about this. I heard some report that at some point today they may roll back all the tariffs because there's still tariffs out there. It's just 10% and whatever they have on China. But this is the interesting thing. Donald Trump is a fucking bully. And what's the one thing bullies fold up when they're confronted with? Somebody who doesn't buy into their shit and says, fuck you. And that's what
that's right.
China's doing right
That's
now.
right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, the Chinese, primarily, but the Europeans are right there with them. All Trump has done is made us financially worse off.
Yeah.
He's going to make us poor. He's sending our allies and pitting them and putting them on the side of China. So you have trade agreements being developed around the world: Australia and China, Japan, South Korea and China, Europeans and China, South Americans and China. And he's isolated our country. You can count on him to fuck up everything. He fucked up the pandemic. A
Yeah.
million people died from it. He's really fucked this up, but he's left us in a position that it's going to take a long time. It's going to take more than one administration after him to even begin to repair the damage he's done to this country. By that time, China will be getting all of its beef and all of its grain from Brazil and Argentina.
Yeah.
They will be getting other kinds of minerals from Australia. The Europeans and the Chinese will have steel agreements. Uh, um, and where are we left off on this? It's going to be our farmers, it's going to be our workers, and nothing will be brought back. You can't make Nike sneakers in this country. We don't have the machines for it. We don't have the raw materials. You've heard that thing about the pencil and what it takes to make a pencil. The wood comes from maybe Oregon, but the graphite comes from South America, and the rubber for the eraser comes from Asia. And
Right.
it goes more than that for everything, right? You can't. That's why you have to have supplies. We are truly a global trade market where those that have low worker wages are building things, but they're also getting investments to buy first class tools. The Chinese, I don't know if you've been following TikTok. The Chinese are getting around the tariffs by doing direct to sell. So
Right.
if you buy under $800, they'll ship you a Versace bag. Won't say Versace on it, but it sure as hell won't cost $1,000 a bag. It'll run you, $50 for a Versace bag. I think that's smart. I'm seeing so much stuff about the Chinese manufacturing. What they don't show you is the workers in the factories and the lack of
Right.
unions and the rest of it. They don't show you that, because American workers aren't going to stand for that. But at the same time, they're taking their money and they're investing it in their own country, and we're too poor to invest in anything in this country.
Well, and that's the interesting thing about China. I don't know a lot about China. I don't know the good parts. I don't know the bad parts. Everything America's ever told us about China was negative, with trade, with dealing with humans and unions and that sort of stuff. So we have a negative look at China. But Donald Trump walked into these tariffs acting like he's the biggest, baddest guy in the jungle, and everybody's just going to fold up and die and do what he wants. It's funny. He had two reasons he was doing this. One was a no negotiation tactic, which would suggest you were never going to do the tariffs. But then when he had to do the tariffs, he said, "Well, this is going to bring trillions of dollars into the country. It's going to bring manufacturing back, which is bullshit because it's just not going to happen. And if it did, it would take 10 years to do it. So what do? We fucking suffer for 10 years. Nobody's going to tolerate that." Uh, but China. He put the 145% tariffs on China. Then they came back and said 125 for us, and we're not buying shit from you. And what do they buy mostly? Soybeans, wheat, different grains, and that sort of stuff. So the
Yeah,
farmers
yeah,
are
wood.
fucked again.
Yeah,
They're fucked again like they were the first
yeah.
time.
Farmers are fucked.
Uh, but
And his
but
administration is playing is. Go ahead.
yeah,
I'm sorry, I
no,
interrupted.
no, 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 that's all right. We got kind of a lag here, so it's kind of hard to do that. But
Yeah,
Donald Trump is trying to push these guys and they ain't going anywhere. And he keeps saying, I'm waiting for a call, but those motherfuckers aren't calling. They're getting tough. And like you said, now you go on TikTok, they're basically making fun of Donald Trump. They're creating memes from China. They're creating these TikToks um, that say, yeah, you can just buy direct from us. All these people that charge you tons of money, like Lululemon and all the handbags, you can get them directly from us. Because basically, China said, well, you want to play that fucking game? Then counterfeiting isn't fucking illegal anymore. We're just going to take everything. And while that might be troublesome for this country, I am so proud of the fact that somebody fucking stood up and said, fuck you, Donnie. You can't win this one. We're going to beat you. And he doesn't know what to do. He's freaking the fuck out at this point.
Well, he's not only, I mean, he's not, the Chinese are not only making fun of Donald Trump, but they're also revealing the secrets of how things get marked up by
Yeah.
American companies with that purchase from them. And so now they're double hurting us. So all the fancy bags, all the fancy sneakers. Listen, I want a pair of sneakers. It's great to get some Nikes, but if I got Nikes, I don't even care if they have a swoosh on them, so long as
Yeah.
they allow me to, go walking, running, whatever I want to do. And so the Chinese are brilliant. You listen, if you watch the TikToks, the Chinese have made fans of the American public. Now,
Yeah.
granted, it's starting with the young people. The Chinese government is not a nice entity. It
No.
really still hasn't. But the Chinese people are awesome. I've been to Hong Kong a couple times, and the Chinese people are amazing. I mean, they're friendly and they're warm and they're smart. They've just learned to stay out of politics. If the Communist Party wants to run everything, let's let them run it, and they're happy being technically done. Surprised me, Mars. I mean, it's not militarily. They've caught up. They're building aircraft carriers, and they can build ships at a rate of 20 to 1 for us. It takes us 5 to 10 years to build an aircraft carrier.
Right.
They're building them in two. They're coming up with fifth generation stealth aircraft. Their drones are first rate. Their robots are first rate. The only thing that we have an advantage is our military has been fighting for forever. It's never stopped fighting, and they don't really have the experience in doing things. But they're very professional and they're very technologically oriented, and frankly now they're very much respected in the world. And the United States is basically in line with Russia and Belarus and some of those others.
It was interesting to see that in some of the things on TikTok that you see that they're promoting their electric cars, the BYDs.
Oh yeah,
And I
yeah.
granted, the video is all, probably hyped up and enhanced and all that stuff. Those fucking cars look pretty nice compared to a Tesla.
I
They look pretty
they,
good.
I want one. Can't get
Yeah.
them here because they're tariffed to death, but I want them. You can get them in you can get them in Europe,
Yeah.
and they're starting to clean the clocks. And every time somebody comes up with some new innovation, others copy it. So eventually the American manufacturers will catch up with electric cars because it looks like China will be the one who will revolutionize transportation, and everything will be electric because they'll sell so much that the others will follow. And the United States is a giant country like China and Russia, so it was a little bit more of a sell here. But eventually, the car companies will start to work with the oil companies, and electric cars will be able to move around the country like you do now with
So
regular ICE cars.
what do you think is going to happen? What's Donald Trump and the Republicans going to do or the cabinet going to do? Um, Donald Trump pulled back the tariffs and it jumped up 3,000 points. And everybody's going, see, he's a genius. What they failed to tell us was that since February, it's dropped 7,000 points. So coming back 3,000 points wasn't a big deal. And then the next day, it dropped 1,000 points. Now it's bouncing around a lot. I don't even know where it's like 39 or 40 right now, still 4 or 5,000 lower than where he started. Um, the volatility of the stock market is probably just as dangerous for the stock market as it dropping. And then you have the bond market, and that really freaked out a lot of people because the bond market Japanese and other countries that have a lot of money invested in those bonds started selling those fuckers off. And that's what really made people nervous.
Oh yeah, because our bonds weren't worth because of uncertainty. They just weren't worth buying anymore, so they dumped them,
Right.
and that we need the bonds to basically because we're in debt, and so the bonds service our debt, and other people hold our debt. So it's essentially an economic weapon. But the fact is, it's the fault of Congress for allowing a single person, i.e., the President of the United States, to have the power to tariff. No economic system should have basically be controlled by one man, and that's what we have
No.
here. And we've got, and he's crazy. He's crazy as can be. There's never going to be uncertainty until Congress takes away that power from him. And so far, the Republicans are more afraid of him in the base than they are of everything else. But I will say that the rich, the wealthy powers that be, are going to they're getting into the ears of the congressmen and the senators. They're saying that, and at some point they're going to say enough's enough. If you ever want to see another dime, or if you don't stick this, because they live this kind of certainty. Plan
Yeah.
for that. You can't make money on under this kind of conditions.
Well, you would think by now this would have been enough after all we've seen. The question is, I got to wonder what the Republicans and Donald Trump and the cabinet and all the wealthy people are thinking. I mean, they really put themselves in a bad situation. They roll back tariffs, it goes up and then it goes down again. How the fuck do they bail out of this? And how does Donald Trump bail out of this while saving face? Because he can never admit he's wrong. But if he bails on it, he's going to look wrong and it's going to be ridiculous. They're really in a bad spot right now because
This
there's
is
not
a
much they can do to help.
complicated. Yeah, this is a complicated story because our representatives, um, they basically they're allowed to bet on the stock market. So they're allowed to buy and trade and sell. And
Right.
so a lot of them, and Democrats too, made a lot of money buying the dip this time. So maybe they weren't in the know, but I got a feeling they were in the know. So if you look at say Jasmine Crockett came into Congress. She had nothing. I mean, she basically had been on welfare. She's now
Yeah.
got something like $15 million in the bank.
Yeah.
AOC has about 30 million in the bank. Now AOC, I don't see playing in stock market. So where's that money coming from? And but if you go to the Nancy Pelosi's and you go to basically Marjorie Taylor Greene put something like $475,000 into this round into the dip, and she's walking away with a few $1 million. I don't know. I don't. Money has a way of just corrupting even the least corruptible among us, and all our representatives are making a ton of money. Um, but I hope that if we take over again, that they do something about all this insider trading, because I think the American public understands that insider trading, though legal, is unethical, whoever's doing it. So I don't know. I don't know if they want to do another on the dip kind of thing and then maybe do something. But I think at some point the billionaires and the corporations are just going to have enough. They're going to lose money. They may make money on the stock market, but they're going to lose the big money that comes from their doing their businesses.
Right. I don't, I'd heard the story that AOC has 30 million too, and then I've heard other stories that she doesn't. It's hard to say what's true when you're listening
Yeah.
to the internet, but I know AOC is kind of behind this idea of stopping all Congress people from even investing at this point because it is so corrupt. I mean, technically it's legal. It shouldn't be legal. They've made a lot of money. I mean, the bottom line when it comes to our politics, if anything's ruined our government, it is money. It's the money that goes into it to get people elected. They spend hundreds of millions of dollars to get somebody to get a job for $175,000. They don't do that for nothing. They do it for bigger money down the road and the votes. And then these people run for these positions so they can make more money. There's got to be something done down the road where we take the money out of politics because it really is to the detriment to the people in this country because it's all about money for them and they don't give a fuck about us. And that's some Democrats too.
Yeah, I mean, let's face fact. It's since money made the equivalent of free speech. And what the wealthy, especially on the Republican side, have always wanted. They were being stymied because of laws stopping them from putting on unlimited money, black money, all of it. And so they set up the foundations and they set up the think tanks. And little by little by little, with a long range plan, they were able to get it through the Supreme Court. And since that time, the country has gotten worse, and
Yeah,
the wealthy have gotten wealthier. So, I've been on the show a bunch of times, and I always say the same thing. Trump is bad, no doubt about it. Trump is a disaster. He's a walking plague. But the real enemy who makes a Trump possible are the wealthy.
right.
And they're in the long scheme of things, the rich and the wealthy and the corporations are really the enemy of an enlightened society here in the United States. It just is. So Trump goes away. He dies. Hopefully he dies for the not too distant future, if we're lucky. Colon problem, man. Whatever, however he goes, there's nobody else that's going to take his place. But unfortunately, the damage will have been in there, and the money interests are so entrenched. So we it's really going to take two, three elections in a row where the Supreme Court, the elders start to die, and the Democrats get to put some people on the Supreme Court to be able to change things. Because you're right, we have to get money out of politics. McCain understood that. And McCain was as honest a guy as you can get for a Republican. But that's really the enemy. The enemy in front of us is Donald Trump, but the enemy behind Donald Trump is the ones that we've got to take in the long scheme of things.
Well, you talked about Donald Trump and his imminent demise, whether it be mental, physical, or by way of impeachment, because I think that is a possibility down the road if things keep going to shit like they are. But I don't know about his physical health. I was surprised because his physical report came out yesterday actually, and it says that he is an astoundingly healthy man of 78, going to be 79. He stands 75 inches tall, which is 6'3". I don't know if that was with lifts or without lifts, but that's what they say. And they said he weighs 225 pounds. I'll tell you this right now. I'm nowhere near 6'3", okay? And I'm not in the best shape, but I'm in better shape than that motherfucker, and I'm more than 225 pounds. I'm
Yeah,
looking at
that's
my
that.
I've got a son that's 35 years old who's 6'3" and about 245, and he doesn't look as good as my son.
Yeah,
That's
that
a
fat
bunch of
bastard's no
bullshit.
two, that fat bastard's no 225. He's not. It's not. But what are you going to do? We every time he has a physical, it's the same thing. I don't even know why even anybody goes and says release your medical records. It's never going to happen. Um, I just hope he's. I listen. There's a whole country of people that want him to pass away sooner than later. It's probably one of the most popular items
Yeah.
on Blue Sky is when somebody posts, "That's some bad news for you today. Donald Trump is still alive," and however they post it, whether they do it with an audio or they do it with some kind of meme or however you do it, and it always ends up with a bunch of hearts liking it, but then comments about how sad they are that he's made it through another sunrise.
Yeah.
No, he's a hated guy. And I don't think he's in great health, but I don't, I'm not confident that he's in really bad health either. So I
Yeah.
just don't know.
It's hard to say exactly what's going on. The report did say he had some abnormalities in his colon. Oh, no shit. Apparently, he has diverticulitis, which isn't a pleasant experience, and not surprising given the drugs he does and his problems with incontinence. And my wife once said to me, when he does die, we as a people can't be cheering in the streets. That's just not nice. Somebody died. And I said, honey, I hate to tell you this, but when Donald Trump does meet his maker, it's going to be like VJ Day up in this motherfucker. People
Yeah,
will be
yeah,
storming
yeah.
the streets.
Yeah, we remember when Saddam Hussein was toppled? What the people
Yeah.
do? Cheer. They took down his statues. They invaded his palaces. It's going to be the same thing. We don't throw shoes. I think that's one of the best traditions that comes out of the Middle East. When you really disrespect somebody, you throw your shoe at them. Maybe that's something we can start now because if he needs to have a shoe thrown at him, it's any kind of bust or painting or what have you of this guy. I don't know if he were to pass away, whether it's through this term or afterwards. I'm not sure. That's going to put the president, if it's a Democratic president, in a quandary. I personally think he should not be rewarded with any kind of official, ceremonies and held in rest and all the rest of it. Let the Republican Party pay for it, and they can do it down in Mar-a-Lago, and he can be buried with his former wife and whatever field she is down there. But
Yeah.
he's still around. He's still kicking. It seems he has the same problems with speaking that he had throughout the election cycle. So he is slowly diminishing, but he's just not diminishing fast enough. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, his
Well,
craziness and the people is affecting all of us.
it's funny. There are people out there that still support him mightily. I saw a young man on TikTok. He has a small business. He sells tires. And he said, I voted for Donald Trump, and uh, I had no idea what was going to happen with my business. Now I'm struggling. I'm suffering. And he says, I hate it that there's people out there that wish me poorly, are glad that I'm suffering. What kind of thing is that? Just because I vote for one person and you vote for another, you want my family to suffer. And I responded to that and I said, well, here's the deal. You voted for what you voted for. If you fucked up, that's your problem. Do I feel sorry for you? No, because actions have reactions and you're responsible for your actions. Um, I said, but you have to understand how people look at this. It's not just that you made a poor choice and now you're paying the price. The reason people hate you is because of your poor choice. Now, innocent people, people who didn't vote for Donald Trump, are suffering. So, as much as you're suffering and a victim at this point, you're also a fucking villain. And that's what they have to understand. Your actions have reactions, and you fucked over a lot of people just because you were oblivious. And you acknowledge you're oblivious because here you are crying about your business.
Listen, I'm with you on it. I'm from New Jersey. As far as I'm concerned, I happily cheer on their misery. I don't
Yeah.
care if the businesses go bankrupt. They're not in that prison in El Salvador like that young man that got taken away, and 200 others. I mean, they did this. They set up people just basically disappearing off the face of the earth and either going down to Louisiana or El Salvador. I saw a video the other day, and a bunch of plainclothes people descended upon a house, and the person in the house managed to call a lawyer who lived close by. And the lawyer came and said, "What do you guys want? And who are you? What's your badge? Who do you work for? What do you want with her?" And their excuse was, "We're doing a wellness check." No fucking wellness check. If they had actually talked to her, she'd be on her way out of the country right now. And that guy's vote did that.
Yeah.
Where you have this without recourse, without a system of rules and law, of people just disappearing from the face of the earth, families separated. I heard another story. Maybe I heard it from you, where they arrested an entire crew working on a house, and one guy refused to get off the roof, and he stayed up on that roof, and he's the only one that didn't disappear. They got the rest of the workers, and so it's so wrong, it's so criminal and so fascist, and that's where we are. And I wake up every day, to be honest with you, with a little bit of anxiety. You're on this platform, and you've got however many thousands and thousands of people that watch the platform, and you're not shy about your language. I'm on blue sky. I promise you, I am not shy about what I post.
Good for
So
you.
I take the best of means, be you know, I'm not the only one. And like I said, I'm almost up, 17,000 followers in 2 months' time. Um, I worry that this stuff is being looked at. They just haven't gotten down to us yet. First the lawyers, then the universities. Um, but free speech is under attack.
It is. I don't worry about it too much because I do have free speech and I don't have a lot to lose here. I don't work for anybody. I put all my property in my kids' names a long time ago in case something happens to me. So what are you going to do? You want to come and sue me? What are you going to get? My Social Security? Well, you're already trying to fucking get that. Um, if you come after me, my shit will really blow up then. We'll have a fucking show.
I,
Um,
I, yeah,
we'll continue on.
just
We
the
had a little
reporting just
glitch.
stopped.
We had a little
Yeah,
glitch there and things shut down. This is what happens when you're not at home and things don't work normally. We'll keep our fingers crossed and hope that this all sticks together. But we're talking to
yeah.
Tony, who is in South Carolina. I'm in Georgia currently, and I'm on a Wi-Fi that I don't know how consistent or how good it is, but we'll give it a shot here. Anyway, you
So,
were talking about these people being shipped to El Salvador, and I'm curious as to what you think about this because I think this may be the one thing where Donald Trump truly stepped in it because he loaded these people up, sent them down to an El Salvadoran prison, a very brutal prison. One of those people was a mistake. The Trump administration acknowledges that mistake. They said, "Oh my God, yeah, we didn't, but we can't do anything about it now because he's in El Salvador," which is absolute bullshit. Absolute bullshit. Now they go to court, and the court says, "Bring him back." He says, "Okay, we're going to appeal," and they say, "Bring him back," and then he takes it to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court says, yeah, you got to facilitate bringing them back. And now they're trying to play word games with the Supreme Court. Well, they really meant this and they didn't mean this. This is typical Donald Trump stuff. But the fact of the matter is, he does have to bring them back. And they're in court now and they keep trying to not answer questions. There's going to come a moment pretty quickly where there is going to be some contempt of court charges meted out. It won't be Donald Trump. It won't be Marco Rubio, but those lawyers are going to have to pay a price. And I'm going to be interested to see what happens when they do that. Now, the important thing to understand is these contempt of court. It's civil. It's civil. Donald Trump can't pardon anybody from that motherfucker. We'll see how brave those lawyers are.
well, first of all, I've heard from Rachel Maddow. They are all for the solicitor's office. They are the ones who go before the Supreme Court. Half the lawyers that are in that division are resigning or retiring or just leaving. So
Yeah.
they know this is coming. Um, this is the constitutional crisis we talked about the last time I was on the show. I don't think they're using the fact that they're in El Salvador and that El Salvador is a sovereign state as an excuse, and that the United States can't really do anything about it. I don't know how much longer it can go on like that. Um, all the Supreme Court can do, or the judges who they've placed this with, who's a little bit further down, is put contempt of court on those lawyers. But I don't think the Steve Millers, I don't think the Donald Trumps, I don't think the rest of them really care if their lawyers get a contempt of court. I don't think they care if they're put in jail. I don't know that the Supreme Court is going to put him in jail, to be honest with you. So I
Well,
just don't know. I don't think
it
anybody
wouldn't
knows.
It wouldn't be the Supreme Court that puts them in jail. It would be the federal court or the appellate court that does it. Because now, they basically said, yeah, you got to bring them back and send it back to the lower court. So the lower court, that judge is the one that's having to deal with the situation. But if they start throwing lawyers in jail and they can't get I mean, if the previous lawyers get thrown in jail or get sanctioned or get whatever, who's going to want to fucking take that job? Is Steve Miller going to do it himself? Go ahead, motherfucker. We'll see. We'll see how you end up.
Yeah. Well, Trump is a master at delay. All right. So the first set of lawyers go, they put the second set in, then they put in the third. Then they got the pro bono, from those lawyers who bent the knee. By the
Yeah.
time that happens, we're 3 years down the road before all that happens. Touching the lawyers doesn't do a damn thing.
But there's no really way
But
that
you can.
they really can't delay it much more because they've gone through the process. They've gone to the court, the appellate court, and they've gone to the Supreme Court. There's really no place for them to go except dicking around like they're dicking around. Here's the thing.
Hey, that's right.
Here's the thing that's going to cause the biggest problem. Some of the people think that they don't want to bring him back because then it sets a precedent, then they'd have to bring everybody back. I could see that as a problem. Another problem that they're thinking is they bring him back and he starts talking about the inhumane treatment that he received in this process. But the last part is the dude still alive? And that's a serious question to ask because he
I
was
don't know that
specific.
it. Yeah,
Well, they specifically said, do not send him back to El Salvador. He's in danger if he goes back there. He's protected here in this country. They send him to one of the most brutal prisons in the fucking world. It's conceivable that he's not alive. Now, of course, Trump and everybody's getting a little sketchy about this. They go, oh, yeah, he's alive. Yeah, but you told us you didn't know where the
I,
fuck he was. How do you know?
I think he's dead. I mean, I just think this is gonna end up being the next case, whoever the next person is in line. Because I think this guy, I don't think he's alive. Um, and is it a secret handshake deal between the Trump administration and the El Salvador government? I don't know. Is it just money or favors given to El Salvadorian already gang members that are in there to do somebody a favor for extra ice cream? I don't know. I don't think he's alive personally.
I don't think he is either, and that could cause holy hell to rain down in this country. When people are starting to talk about the fact that Donald Trump is picking up people, sending them out of the country illegally and incorrectly because of clerical errors, and they end up dead. It's one thing to steal money or classified documents, but when you're sending people away from our country and they die, and they'll say, well, they're a sovereign country. We couldn't help it. That's El Salvador. No, wait, motherfucker. You arrested them here in America. You sent them to El Salvador. El Salvador's got no fucking quarrel with them. You rented space for $6 million to put them in there. So they're your responsibility. This could fly in Donald Trump's face, and it could be one of those things where he finally crashes to the ground. Because when people start dying, and there's probably other people that are going to be found dead, he's got some serious fucking problems. Even some Republicans aren't going to tolerate that bullshit.
This is where I kind of have a little bit of a pushback. I don't think the Republicans give a shit. I think they gave a shit about the tariffs. I don't think they care about these guys. I think everybody on our side is scared to death and we're worried. But you don't see a ton of coverage about it in mainstream media. And because they're not American citizens. It's as simple as that. If we were closer to the 26 elections and we knew the Democrats were going to do investigations and control, the levers of the committees and things like that, then we would see recommendations that won't go anywhere. It might go somewhere after 28 when if we're back in power for people to be arrested for criminal behavior and then atrocities and stuff like that. But until then, I I think it's morally disgusting. I think it's reprehensible. I think the people who are doing this deserve to burn in hell. But the fact is, I just don't see the other side really caring about immigrants sent to El Salvador. I see that being us caring, and we see
Well,
the
that
wrongness of it.
well, that's true. That's true. And I'm not suggesting that the Republicans are finally going to get a fucking soul and care about these people. But remember, on April 5th, we have 5 million people in the streets. If Donald Trump is responsible for somebody dying illegally, who was in this country, was protected, who is married to an American citizen, who has a child that's an American citizen. You don't think those protests are going to get bigger and there's going to be more activity on the streets and more noise in the narrative about it? Republicans may or may not care, but they will care when it starts hitting their bottom line, when it starts hitting their elections. And
Right,
they're
right.
already
Because they're a
seeing it
center of
with the
gravity.
tariffs.
They're
Right.
yeah, they're a center of gravity. If we get big protests in red states, not California, not New York, but big protests in Nebraska and Kansas, in Alabama, and all those places, then they're going to be really concerned. But the fact is that until we attack the center of gravity, I don't think they care. Donald Trump has such a hold on his cabinet, and he has such a hold on the Republican Party, and he knows he's not running for election. And frankly, he doesn't give a shit. I don't think he's even aware of the April 5th protest. To be honest with you, he was down playing golf. You know,
Yeah.
I don't think he don't care. It doesn't hurt him. It doesn't hurt him one bit. Is it if it's in the news cycle, good or bad? That's what he cares about. That his name is in the news cycle and drives off. What happened to Signalgate? It's gone. This major thing gone, knocked off. Now we're talking about other things like tariffs and immigration again, and Signalgate is gone. Which Republicans should care about, the national defense. It's gone, and so he'll come up with something else that will take this off the front page as well. It's a no win until we get power. That's just what I believe in some form or fashion. The protests are good, but they have to be in places where there are threatened members of the GOP. And then, frankly, we're going to have to wait till we can take power before we're able to actually do something of substance.
All right, well, now I'm going to push back on you a little bit. You're talking about the protests happening in blue states, but they have to happen in the red states. You understand that the hands-off protest happened in all 50 states, and there were some big crowds like in Missouri and some other
Yeah,
red states too. So the noise is there.
yeah.
It is happening in those red states. Maybe not as big as, say, New York or Chicago or something like that, but it is there and it's building. They're already feeling this knock at the door, the Republicans. It may not be strong enough for them to do something, but they really have to be thinking about 2026 or anything leading up to that as far as support. Because people hate Republicans. Even Republicans are going, what the fuck?
Oh yeah, 50. I think it's 59% of in recent polls are concerned about the economy. They say it's going in the wrong direction. That's probably as big a sign of anything that the word is getting out that there's something drastically wrong in this country. And it's I don't know if it's a solid majority of Republicans that are in that vote, but it's a pretty big number of Republicans also feel the economy is going in the wrong direction. So between the protests and his stupidity with the tariffs and all nothing but bad news, um, you know, it's a sign that there is momentum on our side. But will Congress, will the administration do something to get these people back? I don't really think so. We still have like 1,000 kids missing from this first administration that they never
Right,
found. You
right.
know, so why would this be any different? The guy Holman and Steve Miller and that nutcase playing cosplay, Christy Nome, they don't care about immigrants. And until the Republicans bring them before a Republican committee and start slamming them hard, we're not going to see any change to the immigration policy. Probably it'll just get buried further down, and then he'll do something else that'll get our minds on something else other than immigration atrocities.
Well, in terms of the economy, I think we can both agree that it's not going to get better. And if 59% are against what's going on with the economy, we can only presume that it's going to get worse as time goes on, which seems to be the bottom line for most voters. How much money do I have in my pocket? How's the economy? And Donald Trump is doing absolutely nothing to help that and doing
No,
everything to a detriment to everybody in this country. So that's certainly going to work against him. And between now and 2026, the Republicans really have to look at that. If the economy is the most important thing, and I don't think it should be, but it is, Donald Trump is not going to improve the economy. He's
No,
taken us from the highest highs, a high in the Dow of 45,000, down to 37,000 at its lowest in a period of less than 3 months. Give him more time, it's not going to fucking get better.
no, no one, and all indications are we're heading towards a massive recession, and it's not going to get better. The problem that people don't understand is he's isolated from this. He's having a grand old time. He's
True.
Everybody caters to him. Everybody kisses his ass. He goes and has a cabinet meeting because he wants to have a cabinet meeting. They all tell him he's the greatest thing that ever happened. He's not. He's unaware of all these things. He's doing exactly what he wants to be. He wants to be the biggest alpha in the room, though.
Okay, we lost. We're having trouble with uh, the Wi-Fi. Now Tony's coming back. I just lost you this time, and now I stayed on. So we're
Yeah,
still
yeah,
here at this point.
yeah, yeah. No,
We're good. We're good. I checked everything. We're good. Let's just keep going. Keep going where you were at. Oh, now Tony's froze up. I can't hear him. Um, I, Tony's a little less sure about whether Congress will do something. And I will say this uh, while we're all right.
yeah, that is
Yeah,
you. That is not me.
it's on this end, and I'm not sure what the problem is. Again, we're dealing with Wi-Fi in a different place than I normally have it, and it's starting to piss me off a little bit. But what I was going to say, Tony, is that at some point the Republicans have to look to the future a little bit. Yeah, they do kiss his ass, but there has been some more pushback, some senators pushing back about this tariff thing. And I don't know what they can or will do about it, but there is a change. Not everybody's on board with everything that Donald Trump does. All they have to do is look at the stock market or take a call from one of their constituents. It's a different situation, and they've got to be at least considering some options down the road if it continues to go this badly.
Well, consider this because this is what's in my brain. Let's say 2026, the Democrats take over the House of Representatives, and maybe it's narrowed in the Senate. Trump is still mad as a hatter. Um, the Democrats impeach him in the House, so it goes for trial in the Senate. I think there's an odds-on chance that they get the votes to remove him at that point.
Oh, yeah.
We've had 2 years of him. I don't know what the excuse will be. I don't know if it will be mismanagement of the government. I don't know if it will be something to do with immigration and illegal. I don't know if it'll be not obeying the Supreme Court. I don't know what it'll be. But I think there's a good chance in 2026 that he gets impeached. And this time, the Republicans will still have the Senate. I think enough senators will come over to get rid of him because he's not doing anything for their party. That's for sure. He's single handedly destroying their party.
Now, I'll be honest with you, if it continues to go badly and the economy craters and there's some other scandals that go on, I would not at all be surprised if the Republicans themselves impeach him. I wouldn't
But
be surprised by that because, they're basically standing in a burning house and they either put the fucker out or they just burn down with him. And these people are too conscious and too um, envious about their jobs. What we found out with Congress, whether it be Democrats or Republicans, the most important thing to them is getting reelected. That's why
yeah,
they do the things they do. And the moment they realize they're not going to get reelected because of Donald Trump, they'll kick that motherfucker to the curb.
yeah. Also, will rich supporter behind them. If they say it's time, then it'll be time because that
Yeah.
party that doesn't depend on small dollar donations. That party depends on black money for the most part and PACs and that kind of thing. So if the donor said enough's enough, enough is enough. I think there's a good chance, but my overall impression is we'll have to wait till 2026. Now, if a few Republicans were to change parties and turn it over to the Democrats, the House of Representatives, we wouldn't have to wait as long. I just don't
Right.
see that happening. It's a possibility. I mean, there's two or three of them. It's going to be two, three, four of them that are not coming back. So why not change parties and then put a stop to his bullshit?
Yeah, that's a distinct possibility. I mean, those are extreme situations, but Donald Trump is doing some extreme things, and it may take some extreme measures to fucking right the ship, and it's going to take a lot. You brought up something about martial law, and given that you have a military background, I think this is a good question. A lot of people are talking about, oh, April 20th, it's going to be martial law. And, you hear a lot of stuff on the internet, a lot of people trying to fearmonger and that sort of thing. I'm not as confident that there's going to be an effort to make uh, uh, martial law. I just don't think there's a taste for it. If we got 5 million people running the streets on April 5th and probably more on April 19th, that's a lot of people to try to stop. And then you have to wonder, does the military go along with whatever Donald Trump says? And I'm not so sure about that, but you would know better how the military would react in a situation like that.
Yeah, I they won't. Let's say you can call in a National Guard for public protest, and
Hmm.
I so let's say there's a public protest and it's pretty big in Detroit, and all of a sudden fires start breaking out. We don't know who started the fires. We know who did it the last time with
Yeah.
they had protests. So in at a point like that where he has an excuse, he could declare martial law, but it wouldn't be the active duty going in. It would be the National Guard being called in, probably by the governor of that particular state. So they've been used before like that. All you got to do is think Kent State, right? And that's National Guard called in. As far as him calling in National Guard for any other reason, I don't see it. And I think that most of the admirals, generals, and flag officers, especially the ones that sit on the Joint Chiefs of Staffs, I think they won't go along with it. And he might not know that because he's crazy as a loon. But
Yeah.
I think the secretary, who even though he's a moron, I think Peter Hegseth will be given a warning in private. We won't do this. Now, where do I think a real martial law possibility would be? In terms of in a direction across the country, I see more of an attempt at declaring martial law and declaring that election null and void. I mean, if there was going to be some place strategically where he can be stopped, because he understands that if the Democrats get in power, it's not. There's a possibility that not only can he be stopped by being impeached and removed from office, there's a possibility once he's gone that the folks that he put in power can also be impeached and removed from their position, all his department heads. In which case, then we might revert back to the status quo. So,
Yeah.
if he's going to declare martial law, that's where we'll see it in the midterms.
That's the one thing I've been thinking about too. Donald Trump's got his immunity and whatever. He's not immune from everything. He could be um, at risk of some charges after he leaves office, assuming he's still has the wherewithal to be charged with something. But there's a lot of people around him. There's the Stephen Millers, there's the Pete Hegseths, there's the Marco Rubios. They're all being made to do things that are a little questionable. And they don't have any security. They don't have any immunity. Do you think they realize that they might be at risk of charges when the Democrats finally do get power?
That's a really great question. And my answer is no, because if they had an understanding that they could be held accountable for everything that's going on right now, they wouldn't do it. I I think Marco Rubio is close to either pulling chalks or getting fired. I think Noam is probably going to end up in jail for her tenure in as her tenure in Homeland Defense. I think we haven't heard much from Patel, and as far as the
No.
FBI, it's been very, very quiet over there, other than moving his digs and some people getting fired. But Pete Hegseth, we he hasn't really put him in. We don't know all the details, and it's going to be a congressional investigation that pulls that out. But there are a couple people, Steve Miller for sure, and some others, Home for Homeland Defense, or he's the border czar, I guess. I think those guys might end up with some criminal charges. So the question was, are they aware? I don't think so, because if they were well aware, I mean, they have attorneys all around them. They're surrounded by attorneys who can tell them that's a bad idea, and they're doing it anyway. A lot of the Project 2025 people have some accountability issues coming up if we ever get power again.
Well, I think that they believe that they're safe because of Donald Trump, but they're known for not looking to the future because Donald Trump will not be viable at some point in the
No.
not too distant future, whether by way of his mortal coil or what or physical abilities, or he's impeached, or he just ends up being out of office. Um, these people are going to be totally unprotected. And even if Donald Trump could protect them, he's shown in the last term he doesn't protect anybody. And in
No.
terms of people going to jail, you remember Watergate. We had a few people go to jail after that fucking thing too, including the attorney general.
Oh yeah, I listen. I have no doubt that there's going to be hell to pay, and I don't. He could give them a blanket, forgiveness or get out of jail card. I mean, but we to make this happen, we need to have a president who's a lot more aggressive than our last president. We
Yeah,
need to have an attorney general who's a freaking killer whale go in
yeah,
there, and actually do the job, and don't wait 3 years before they do the job and start the investigations right away. They're not going to have thousands of people to go after. We're talking, 100 people
yeah.
may have some culpability. So, you know, we have some hope. Listen, it's a bad time, and lots of people have given up hope. You're like one of the more positive voices out there. But the fact is, the pendulum swings both ways. And I don't think the Constitution has been shredded enough for him to stop an election. I just really don't. I also
Yeah.
think people are really, really mad and pissed, and each one that's pissed is a potential voter for blue. So and every vote for blue gets us closer to the point where we can now take over the reins of power and change things up, and vengefully, I hope, vengefully go after the people who did this to our country. They have damaged the country almost probably beyond repair. It's going to take decades to get back the faith and confidence of our former partners. NATO's dead, as far as I'm concerned. There's going to be some European organization that will be responsible for itself. But NATO as an entity is dead. Our relationship with ASEAN in the Pacific is dead. Our bilaterals with Japan and Korea and Australia are dead. Our friendship with Canada is dead. Our financial ties with Mexico are dead. He did all that. I don't envy the next guy. We cannot afford somebody who's not going to come aggressively and be frankly younger and take on this challenge. And one of those challenges is eventually go after the people who did this to us.
Yeah. There are some people say that none of this can be fixed, and I don't like to look at things that way. I mean, we've gone through some shit in this country.
Yeah,
I think it can be fixed, but as you say, it's got to be the right people to do it, and it's going to take some time. We're not going to get a Democratic president and all of a sudden everything's going to be sunny and nice. There's a lot of work that's going to have to go forward with trying to repair relationships with countries like Canada, Mexico, the EU, and that sort of stuff. Uh, this isn't going to be an easy row to hoe. This is going to be
no,
tough.
no, it's going to be hard. And it begins with everybody that listens to this podcast in all of blue to go out and to go see this and show up halls, voice your opinions, and make it miserable for the GOP, so that come 2026, a change can be effected.
You brought up Signalgate and how that's kind of gone by the wayside. That's still very troubling. That's still a big problem. I've asked people before, do we have
It's
any
huge.
national security at all? And I would say, no, we have no national security. And that could cause catastrophic disaster too, now that we don't have the strength in our security. But then we've got Elon Musk, and Elon Musk is in a much different situation. For a while there, he seemed like a bull in a china shop doing whatever the fuck he wants. And now he's been kind of pulled back a little bit because they realize fucking finally that he's a liability. Nobody likes this motherfucker. Do you think they keep him around just because they don't want to look bad by firing him and they just take him out of the
Oh
mix a
no,
little bit?
no, he's out. He's not allowed. I heard yesterday that he's not allowed to go in and see the president without going through Susan Wiles, the chief of staff. He has to make an appointment. His office has been moved from the White House to one of the congressional buildings that are down there, so he still has some office space. He appeared on some gaming site, and the gamers chased him out. He is a pariah. He's a societal pariah right now. Tesla is in the tank. The only thing that's saving him is the fact that he still has his satellite constellation, but Amazon's starting to put up satellites. The Europeans are starting to put up satellites. So I got a feeling that'll go the same way as Tesla. So what's that leave him? That leaves him SpaceX with government contracts. If the next president has any brains, um, he manages to wrestle away those contracts with SpaceX, either returning space flight to NASA, which won't probably happen, or going to a competitor like, I hate to say, but like Amazon, um,
Yeah.
somebody else. But to be honest, at this point, Bezos, I take Bezos over Musk, and so I'd love to see Musk just totally destroyed, financially bankrupt, and let him retreat to a fucking island someplace and stay there, and never come out into the public again. I mean, that's how I feel about him.
The problem with Elon Musk over, say, a Bezos, Bezos is an evil, greedy motherfucker. There's no question about
He
that.
is, he is.
But Elon Musk is a lot like Donald Trump, is that he's not controllable. He does whatever he wants. And no matter how bad he fucks up, he'll just do it again. That's the same for Donald Trump. And we've got drunken toddlers in the White House with Elon Musk and Donald Trump, and nobody has the courage to control them. So to get them out of the mix would be the first best thing. Now Bezos takes over the satellites, and JD Vance takes over the presidency. If that were to occur, that's not a good thing either. But sadly, it's better than what we've got.
Bezos is rational.
Yeah,
He is a greedy businessman. He's an oligarch. So that's where he is. But he's not. He's not crazy. He's just greedy. Musk is just freaking crazy and doesn't have an understanding of the world. He represents another danger, but he's now a pariah. And we've said this before that he was a scapegoat. He was a scapegoat in front of Donald Trump, and now they don't need him anymore. So he's gone.
right.
So, Trump made a lot of money on this stock manipulation. We don't
Oh,
know
no
it.
question.
We don't see it. He doesn't need this guy's money. He's not running for election. He's back to being a multi-billionaire again. And he's going to continue making money so long as he's in office. That's just that's the nature of the thing. So Musk is I think he's done. I think he's finished. And I think his businesses are going to tank. I think it's way too late for Tesla. I think Tesla as a
Yeah.
corporation is finished. No one's buying them. Nobody cares about it. The brand is ruined. And frankly, I don't know what the board is waiting for. They need to get rid of him. And even if they get rid of him, I think the brand is done. Dated electric cars that might have been top of the line, 5 years ago, they're getting their asses kicked by the Europeans and definitely by the Chinese.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's no coming back for Tesla. Even if you fire him and bring somebody else in, it better be somebody who can recreate the brand quickly because that fucker's dying on the vine. They can't continue going the way they're going. And obviously Elon's concerned about it. He's crying and whining about it constantly. Uh, the funny thing about Elon, he is so awkward in society that he cannot absolutely understand why people hate him. He cannot understand that. He said, I've only been productive when he's been nothing but destructive since Donald Trump took over the presidency. He just doesn't get it. He thinks he's fucking a genius. And that goes along with the malignant narcissism like Donald Trump. No matter what Donald Trump says, he thinks it's genius. And so does Elon Musk. They've both been lucky because they had dads who handed them a bunch of money. They bought into businesses, which they've run into the ground every fucking time. Even Elon Musk. When it's all said and done, he will have run all his businesses into the ground.
You know, at one point a few years ago, Musk was thought as the new Tony Stark, right? He sends a car up into space with a spacecraft with a car in it. You know, pretty kind of cool stuff. You know, he's doing robots. He's doing an interface with a human being with a computer chip. Yeah, all stuff. If he had stayed out of this, he would still be the world's richest man. And you know, his car company would be able to get enough investment capital to refresh their vehicles and all that kind of stuff. He's pathetic. He's just pathetic, and he's a pariah. And he's not coming back. And you know, and this is the thing about old money. They need rich need to be taxed. They need the estate tax to come back because these people give their money to toddlers who are underdeveloped. Their fathers have ruined them, and then they cause an ungodly amount of damage in the world. You know, so we need to do. I don't know. I don't have an answer for it. I mean, we need to eat the rich. You know, as the saying goes, because the rich are eating the rest of us.
Well, how do you think we're doing with that? I mean, they want to make it Democrats versus Republicans, liberals versus conservatives, and Republicans at this day and age, they aren't conservatives, but that's what they want to make it. And the real war here is a class war, the rich against the rest of us. That's really what it is. The rich control the big companies, they control government to a large extent, and I think people are getting tired of it. Is there a way to break that headlock that they have on everything? Because they have all the money.
Well, well, the first indication will be the big, beautiful tax bill that is working its way through Congress. If that gets stalled and stopped, then there's been a little bit of a shift in momentum. Uh, and so that's the first thing. If they get that tax cut, then they just have that much more money to invest into keeping themselves even richer and richer and richer. I mean, this can't work until we can message out to the blue collar reds that the real enemy are the people that have always been the real enemy, the people that employ you, the people that take advantage of you, the people that cut your perks, the people that want you to work for the same wages and do the same kind of hazardous work that's done overseas. They're the real enemy. And until you guys realize that and come back and put up with, you know, trans rights and the rest of it, then we can come back. So we really, the Democratic Party has to sell itself and using Bernie Sanders and AOC as their standard bearers. We need to get the message out. We're here for everybody. We're here to eat the rich, and they ought to put it just like that. We're going to eat the rich. We're going to take back and claw back the advantages that they've corruptly managed over the last 20 to 30 years. But they never say that. And the reason they don't ever say that is because a lot of them are in bed with very wealthy interests as well. So,
Yeah, you're
uh,
absolutely right about that. But I tell you what, when people start ranting and raving and saying eat the rich, these fuckers take notice, these wealthy people. They know that's a risk by doing what they're doing. And that may be their greatest fear. When everybody is in an uprising against all wealthy people, whether it be Bezos or Elon Musk. I mean, Elon Musk is getting a taste of what it's like to be being eaten by the average person in this
absolutely.
country because
Absolutely.
he's getting decimated in his businesses. He doesn't understand it because he's awkward and weird, but that's got to be a signal to some of these other wealthy people that, you know, you better watch your P's and Q's or you could end up like Elon Musk. In fact, when Elon Musk is down and fried and over with, we should pick another one out. and go
Yeah,
after them.
I mean, there's been some like Target's not doing well, Walmart's not doing particularly well. Um, you know, a lot of companies that have, I want to say, not fine dining, but casual dining, they're going bankrupt. A lot of retail is going down. Now with the tariffs, you're going to have farm interests. The only way the farmers will stay in place is if they're bribed. So if they get become subsidized, which is just basically a bribe to keep in business, but that's not helping the small businesses. Um,
No.
and that's what they'll do over the next. You watch it, next couple of months, you'll see a whole host of subsidies go out to various industries to keep them going. It's just a bribe. It just gets added onto our debt. To them, it's just fake money. Let's use it to bribe people with. So, I don't. Such a complicated. It's complicated, but it's not complicated. If our folks would go and message correctly and get more people to vote correctly, problems can be solved. The problem is that the wealthy have subverted one entire party and they've used a bunch of bullshit kind of reasoning like this black people is the reason you don't have a job, this immigrant is coming over and creating crime, this trans person is changing in your locker room. They're using all that to enrage the other folks, and you can say, well, they should be smart enough to see that. They're not. So we have to counter that message with our own messages. With our, you're poor in Alabama and you're sitting out here, and they just took away your Medicaid. And by the way, they're also cutting your Social Security, and it's this party and that wealthy person that's doing it.
Right.
They need to be as blunt as that, and they need to change it into a real war thing.
You brought up the
This is
subsidies. You brought up the subsidies, and I wanted to ask you about that. When Donald Trump buried the farmers in the first term, he gave them $58 billion to bail them out. And you're suggesting that they'll probably have to do something like this again. And my question to you is why?
that's right.
Donald Trump is transactional.
They're doing
He's
it
not
now.
going he's not going to give them money unless he gets something in return, and there's nothing he needs. He doesn't need money, he doesn't need votes. He needed their votes in the first term, but he doesn't need anything from them now. And then he has to justify coming up with money to subsidize them. And in the process of doing that, he's admitting that he's wrong, that he fucked up.
Well, that's one way of looking at it, and you're not wrong. The fact is, the money's coming from the Republican Congress. They're already working on the bill because they have to run in Nebraska and Kansas and all those places. So the money's not coming from him. He'll sign anything they say get over to him. So it's coming out of the Republican-led Congress because they know that they've got to go back into those states and districts, and if they're going to get votes, they got to bring home something. So now they'll be able to go back to whatever event is in Hooterville and go, look, I managed to get you money to keep your farm alive without really going into the rest of it, even though our standard bearer was the one who destroyed your farm in the first place. And those
Right.
people out there will go, you're really working with the Senator White House. Thank you so much for doing that. We appreciate you. You got my vote.
Yeah, I know.
Meanwhile, right,
That's stupid.
right, yeah.
Well, I mean,
Meanwhile, where's the Democrat going to these guys and say they're the ones who ruined you in the first place? And by the way, I also voted to give you a subsidy because I knew you needed it until we can fix everything. And that's the second part. That's the part that our guys are not doing. They're not fighting for every vote.
yeah. Do you think we have it within the Democratic Party to ultimately do that? Because that's going to be absolutely necessary to message properly, be tougher, be in people's faces, and just, I mean, the farmers, the first time around in the first term, got buried, they got bailed out, and these dumb motherfuckers voted for him again. It doesn't account for much intelligence. I mean, great, I got bailed out, but how about if I just don't get bailed? How about you just let me do my job and make my money the way I know how to make money? But that apparently wasn't enough for them. They voted again, and now they're worried, and there's going to be all kinds of problems unless they get bailed out. It
I
just
think
amazes me.
it is amazing, but it's because our people don't know how to speak to every one of their constituents. Either they're too lazy, or they don't understand it, or they don't Yeah, so there's no reason why we can't change opinion. If you look at the abortion laws that were coming through, they lost in Kansas. So there,
Yeah.
you can change people's minds if you approach them correctly, right? And so we should be able to do that. Name your event. They're coming to take your Social Security, Grandpa. They're already said it. Look, and oh, here's a video. You know, you hold up your phone with them talking about taking away your Social Security. Oh, they're going to
Right.
take out. You know, if you go into the town square, then not much of a town square where they depend on Medicaid. They're saying, look, they're cutting your Medicaid. You're not going to have hospitalization. But somebody's got to go do that. They got to bring their tablet down there and they got to go do it. So do we think the party will do it? I can only pray so. I mean, we have a DNC. We need to make some changes certainly in the Congress. We got to get rid of the Chuck Schumers and the people who are just comfortable there and replace them. So I mean, it's a two-part effort, right? They've got to be voted out, and a new generation of people who can actually still talk to people will need to go out there and talk to people.
Yeah, I think maybe it's more hopeful thinking than actual believing, but with what's going to happen over the next 4 years going into 2028, and we have an election for a president and senators and reps and stuff, I almost feel with what the Republicans are going to do to this country and what the Democrats refuse to do, I'm thinking there's going to be a dramatic change in our Congress, one way or another. The Democrats are going to have to change completely if they're going to stay in the fucking fight. But what scares me about this is that theoretically, if the Democrats just do what they do and the Republicans destroy the economy and the country, the Democrats should win easily. Unfortunately, that's what I thought on November 5th, too. Kamala Harris, a good, well respected, experienced candidate to run for president, and Donald Trump, the worst fucking candidate in the history of this country. I thought it makes no sense that Donald Trump wins, but there's no accounting for stupidity in this country. It's
No,
truly
no, no.
amazing that they will vote against their own self-interest, and then when they get the shit taken away from them, they say, "Well, I didn't know this was going to happen, but I still support Donald Trump." Motherfucker,
Yeah,
stop it. You're going to kill
yeah,
yourself.
but Trump won't be there. But Trump won't be there. So now we need to size up the opponents and blame the bad economy on the current opponent, a current congressman, a current senator who happens to be Republican. That's doable.
Absolutely.
Get yourself a
Yeah.
good candidate. Get yourself a good candidate. Look, what's his name lost in North Carolina? That guy that was, I don't know if he was a former minister or whatever, because he was crazy. There's a
Yeah.
good chance there's going to be a lot of crazies running, and this 26 and 28 give us a good opportunity. 28 in particular gives us a great opportunity if we pick the right presidential candidate. The last time I was on here with you, we talked about it. It's not going to be a black woman. It's probably not going to be Gretchen Whitmer. She just shot herself in the foot not too long
Yeah.
ago. Not her fault. I think she got set up. So, you know, who's left? It's going to be one of our governors, or on the outside, maybe Pete Buttigieg, but I don't think so because he's gay. So we have to pick the right candidate, but we got to pick somebody with fire in the belly and who then picks the right vice president candidate. I hate to say this, but it may come down to the same thing we did with Clinton and who was his running mate in Clinton, Al Gore. We may
Right.
end up having to put together something like that, and it's not fair, and it's misogynistic, and it's not fair to people. There we do have more depth than they do. I don't know who they could run after Trump. Um, that 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 could that could win. To be honest with you, so we have an opportunity, but we can't waste it. We gotta end as strong as possible. We're not running for just the presidency. We're running also for the Congress and for the state houses and everything else. So we can't screw this up. We've got to go with our strongest cards that we possibly can, and no bluffing.
You know, it's funny. People will say right after the election, they said, Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom's the guy to run for president in 2028. And I always said, too fucking early. Too many things can happen. And then Gavin Newsom does this podcast, and people are pissed off at him because he doesn't do what he's
Yeah.
supposed to do and go after Charlie Kirk or whoever the fuck he went after. And then Cory Booker does the 25-hour thing, which was truly amazing. They go, maybe he's our guy. But again, it's still too early. That said, they got to come up with somebody relatively soon, at least by the midterms, so they can start pumping whoever their prospect is for the candidacy early on. We can't wait till the last minute like we did with Kamala Harris. Clearly, that doesn't work. In addition to the racism and the sexism we have in this country, it sounds like to me that we need to find a white guy to do it. And it hurts me to say that because there's so many women and people of color that could be president of the United States. But I'm just afraid that this pissed me off. My wife, well, I was talking to Old Soul when we were talking about Kamala Harris before she was the candidate. And Old Soul said to me, I don't think this country's ready for a black woman for president. And me and old white guy go, what are you fucking talking about? We've come a long way. And damned if Old Soul wasn't right. We aren't ready for it. They proved it
No,
on November 5th.
no, I don't. I don't know if we're ready for a woman. I don't even know if we want to take a chance. To be honest with you, we've run
No, we
two
got to
women,
win.
two great women. I thought Hillary was great, and I thought Kamala was great. But we got to win. Now you said about a white guy. I think the governor of Maryland. We talked about him before. I've seen him interviewed a bunch of times. I think he'd be a great candidate, and he's
He
not white.
would.
You
No,
know,
he's not.
yeah, he's an Obama type guy, sort of a central figure. You know, pragmatic. I hate going back with a centrist. So but he's going to need to pick a pretty good VP and somebody again that's a fighter. So maybe Pete Buttigieg would be a good VP. I don't know that I would take a governor out. I would give the VP position not that important, and Buttigieg would be great on the stump as vice president candidate, and I think that would work. We have a gay guy running, we have a black guy running, and to me and both guys have a record of achievement. So I think we'd have a good chance. Who they would run, I don't know. Christy Nome will probably try to run, but she's fucking crazy. I don't know if you saw her the other day cosplaying with the
Yeah.
with the Ice Agent. She had her. I mean, I have guns, so I know the way she was holding that gun was not safe, and I don't blame that Ice Agent for taking a step back. He was scared for his life, and she doesn't belong there anyway. I heard something funny about that if I were the ICE agents, I'd be scared because they were wearing dog tags.
Yeah, no shit. No
You
shit.
know,
Yeah, they're eating the
uh,
dogs in
so
Pennsylvania, but she's shooting the dogs in fucking South Dakota.
yeah. So I don't know. I don't think they have anybody. I don't know that their RNC is that powerful, but it'll be well funded. You know it, but it won't have Musk money in it this time around. This time
No.
around, Musk is probably going to sit this one out. $250 million they put in last time made a world of difference for Trump. Trump, I think Trump is going to end up having Alzheimer's. That's what I'm hoping on him.
Yeah.
I'm hoping he
Well,
leaves the office and within a week is a babbling idiot in a diaper, and being cared for in a padded room in Mar-a-Lago. That's what I'm hoping for him. I don't even want him to pass away. I want him to. I want him to, fade by because he deserves that kind of punishment for what he's done to
yeah,
this country. Him dying quickly is not good enough.
no. We don't need him to be a martyr, which is what he'd be to at least a faction of the Trump Lefuck base. We need him. I need him to leave office in the most embarrassing way. That's the best thing for a narcissist. You know,
Yeah,
it
sucking his
reminds me.
thumb and
Well, you remember Jim Baker when they took down
yeah, yeah,
PTL? You know how they
yeah,
found him when they
yeah.
grabbed him out of the office? He was curled up in the fetal position under his desk crying. That's what I want to fucking see.
Right, that's right, that's right. Listen, I mean, if they protect him in his last year and he's crumbling, his Alzheimer's is bad, and then we get to see him at the end and he's just sucking his thumb and he doesn't remember who he is or what. He couldn't even shut his fucking umbrella the other day. I mean,
Yeah.
what grown man doesn't know how to shut an umbrella going into a place? So there's something wrong with him for sure, and I hope he diminishes really quickly for the best. Now they need him So they're gonna hide his affliction for sure from the rest of us. But we as Democrats, we're starting to stand up again. I think I saw the DNC chairman being interviewed. He seems solid enough. It looks like he's got a 50 state plan. So they're going to put money everywhere that they can put money. He understands the importance of now trying to get not only the governorships but also the state houses in every state. Um, I've all the interviews I've seen, a lot of doom and gloom on all the podcasts, but also already that momentum does seem to be shifting slowly. You can't turn
Yeah,
an aircraft carrier around quickly like a speedboat, but it does seem it does seem really, really bad right now in the country, which is really, really bad for the GOP. And
right.
I'm happy to see it, and I'm going to promote it as much as I possibly can.
Well, that's what we need to do. We need to keep loud, place the blame where it should go, and keep exposing them for what they are and what they've done, whether it be this guy they sent to El Salvador, whether it be the tariffs and crashing the economy. We need to keep talking about it because they are getting a little shook by it. And this is not the time to let up and go easy on them. I've always said when you're fighting a bully, you got to make sure he's put down permanently because that fucker will come up behind you at some point down the
That's
road.
right.
We need to
That's
end
right.
this. And the advantage we have is when Donald Trump is not part of the equation anymore, they don't really have anybody like him to replace him. So it's going to be weaker no matter who they have. I think MAGA
Absolutely.
is in its end days because there'll nobody be that would be crazy enough to replace Donald Trump.
Yeah. And one last thing, we're talking about being tough on the GOP. Let's not take it easy on our own representatives. Chuck Schumer got spanked hard. And
Yeah,
that spanking needs to continue with every single one of the sellouts that's in there, the do nothings that stand
right.
there and they listen to George and they listen to Carville and do nothing. If they're not doing anything, that needs to be called out publicly in as much media as we can, so that guy can get, or gal needs to be primaried and removed from office. We need to see every single representative show up in social media and tell us what they're doing and fighting for us. And I'm seeing more of that on TikTok. I'm seeing a lot more Democratic representatives show up, and that's good. They're
Yeah,
going in. They're
absolutely.
telling us. They're telling us how crazy the other side is. And we need to do that. And those like Schumer got to go. Some of the old
They got
timers
it.
got to go. You know.
Absolutely have to go. Well, Tony, we're going to wrap things up for the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you for coming in at the last moment and talking. I know people enjoy hearing from you. I enjoy hearing from you. We got a lot of shit to talk about going forward. So, of course, you're more than welcome anytime you want to come back.
Yeah, and I'll see you in a few weeks. I have to always build up my ammunition. And anybody looking for me on Blue Sky, look for T902 at bluesky.com. I'm on there. I'm not as good as Mike, but I sure
Yeah, you are.
stuff.
Yeah,
If you
you
like
are.
animal stuff, you get to see my you get to see my pets and everything else. And I always end the night with something positive. Every single night, I say good night to the Blue Sky tribe, and I always put something positive wherever I can find it. So I hope to
Well,
see you guys on Blue Sky. Mike, thank you so much for the opportunity again.
no problem. And you talked about not being as good. Well, here on Blue Sky, you have 17,000 followers. I have about 5,000 followers. I'll give you a little tip though, just to start, just to try. I don't know if you heard about this uh, when they were looking for a replacement for TikTok, should they need that. Somebody came on and said, "Hey, Mark Cuban, you should start a new TikTok." And he said, "Look, I would do that if you use the platform that Blue Sky is on, AT, and take it off of there." So some people got together and created something called Skylight Social, and it's a
I'm
little
on
like
there.
TikTok. Oh, you're on there? Okay, so am I.
I'm on there.
And
All my videos go right from Blue Sky over to Skylight. I'm on there.
it's not perfect yet. They don't have a lot of people yet, but it's headed the right direction. And what do we have
It
to
is.
lose to be a part of that too?
Yeah,
It's
we have Thread still outnumbers us. Of course, X still outnumbers us. Well, we're growing slowly, and if we can get more people to promote it, and frankly, if all the big major podcasters and the rest, promoted Blue Sky, we grow a lot quicker. I think there's 30 million, 35 million on there right now.
yeah,
Um,
there's a few.
I,
There's
I
a few.
I looked at the other day though. There's a lady running for governor of New Mexico. I actually have more followers than she does at this point. So I just pat myself on the back. I'm an old man. I'll take whatever stuff I can
Yeah.
take. Anytime.
No shit. Me too. Me too. Well, Tony, thank you very much. And for those of you listening, thanks for taking the time to do that. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.